right, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to talk about some employee management tools within isolved. Our monthly training webinar. We do these the third Tuesday of every month. So check out the website to sign up for future months, upcoming months. We try to do different webinars on either isolved training or compliance topics. We try to run through a whole bunch of stuff to make sure you're getting your best experience with us and to get business taken care of. So today we're going to talk about some basic employee management. We're also going to talk about a little more advanced employee management within isolved. We'll go through some of the screens. We'll talk about what each of them does, how they work, what may be going on, so forth and so on. I'll explain how each screen works. Some screens have different quirks that happen with them based on different situations. So we'll talk about some of those, and then again we'll talk about some more advanced topics as well if we have time. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen into isolved. All right, we're on our demo company today. So we're going to mostly be working in this employee management tab. I'm in our demo company, so everything's demo here, and we'll be playing around. We're going to create some dummy data. First thing I want to let everybody know, so the biggest thing that most clients are doing is hiring employees and adding staff. So to do that, the easiest way to do that is to go into the quick hire screen. We're going to come in here. There's a lot of boxes on this screen, which certainly can seem overwhelming, but most of this is basic information that can be found in your W-4 form or on our new employee setup paperwork. So these are really good forms to use to help you input this data. We also have new hire onboarding, electronic new hire onboarding. So if you have employees that you'd like to be able to basically do their own onboarding, set themselves up, register themselves for benefits, all that fun stuff, you can do that electronically, create an electronic W-4, electronic direct deposit, everything gets done paperless. They set themselves up. All you have to do is review and approve it. Pretty slick. That will be a webinar later in the year as well if you want to learn more about that, or feel free to reach out. But most employers are just setting their employees up by hand. So I'm going to go through each of these boxes, kind of explain what they are, how they work. So in this demo company, we only have one company that's going to ask about which company do you want to set this up in. Some clients may have multiple companies that they work in, so there'll be more than one. So you want to just make sure that you're in the right company. As you're setting up a new employee, they're always going to be active, so that's good. If you have a hire date, it's important to pick the actual hire date that they were started. This obviously drives a lot of different things: accruals, benefits, and payroll. So we want to make sure that this person is set up with the actual date they started working, not today's date necessarily. So I'm just going to say this person started the first of the year, and we're going to choose whether they're full-time or part-time. Again, some of these things will drive benefits, accruals, things like that. So it's important to get them set up correctly. I'm going to say this person is full-time. Then we move down to the ID type. 99.999% of the time, they're going to be a social security number. So we can put that in there, and we'll get this set up. Put something in there. It is masked for security. If you click and hold the little eye icon, that will give you the information unmasked. So let's go ahead and put a person in here. First name, last name. You can put a middle name if you want in there. When we get to email, this is the email that they'll get to set themselves up in my HR stuff. So this will be really nice for getting them set up. So I'm just going to put in an email here. Generally speaking, you're going to want to go ahead and enable this self-service access because of the demo. I'm not going to do that. Once you save this, this will fire off their activation email so that they can get registered for self-service to get their pay stubs and so forth. Moving down the list, marital status. This is only for reporting purposes. This does not have to do with taxes or anything like that. You can choose to use it or not. I'm going to put an address in here. I'm making something up as we go, right? And we can put our zip code in there. When you tab over, it's automatically going to put in the city and state when you put that zip code in there. So that will be a nice little autofill feature. Phone numbers, again, this is all for reporting purposes. You can do these if you want or not. Birth date is not generally required by default. However, if you have a retirement plan, you're going to want to get this set up because this is really important for retirement reporting. So make sure you put a birthday in for that. We may, if you have a retirement plan set up, we may go in and put a birth date requirement in there for you to try to do that. Gender is a required field, something we have to report to the state every quarter. So make sure you choose that. Then we get down into the pay information. So most clients only have one pay group. This is your schedule, basically. If you have more than one, make sure you select that. We talked about our pay type here. So we're going to come in here. Most of the time, you're either going to use hourly or salary. So we'll come in here and choose hourly. My hourly rate is going to be $25 here. If you tab over through that, it's automatically going to fill in the calculations for annual salary and per pay salary. These are based on the normal hours, right? So if this person generally only works 20 hours in a bi-weekly pay period, right? It's automatically going to recalculate that. It's going to automatically fill in 40 hours or 80 hours, depending on your schedule. Most people just leave that, but it's certainly an option if you want to adjust that as well. And as you can see, as I'm tabbing between these boxes, it is adjusting the calculations. So the annual salary per pay salary really only matters for salaried folks. I do want to just mention, if we put in a salary, what you want to do, you can either put in the annual salary, we could put in 75,000, right? It'll automatically calculate the per pay salary. You could do it either way. If you wanted to say, yep, this person's going to get $2,500 every other week, you could do that as well. And that will automatically calculate the annual salary based on that salary. So that's nice. Just change this person back to hourly because we're going to do some different things with this later. Keep scrolling down. If we have alternate pay rates, you would set those up here. Some clients do have those, especially restaurants and things like that. If you need help setting up alternate pay rates, let us know. We'll get those set up as well. Down to direct deposit at the bottom, this sometimes gets confusing for folks. So we can add as many direct deposits as we want. I'm going to add 2 rows, but you could add as many as you want. You can have seen as many as 10 or 12, I think, is the most I've ever seen, but certainly you can add as many as you want. There's no limits. I would encourage you to keep it simple. Don't stress out about that. Try to encourage your employees not to pay their bills through direct deposit, but definitely the ability is there for them to do this. So I'm going to come in here. Generally speaking, you're always going to make these active. We do not do pre-notes, so just ignore that. We're going to come in here active. It's going to ask you what account type is this. Again, checking or savings are the ones you're going to use. Almost nobody uses the pay card options, literally just checking or savings. I'm going to make this first item a savings account. And it asks me the sequence that I want to do this in. So you can see this has an option, 1, 2, or the remaining amount. I want this amount. I'm going to do $50 into their savings account. I want this to come out first. Okay. So you can basically do it in steps. First, if they have a net pay of $500, I want $50 first to go to their savings account. Okay. You can do that in amount, or you can do it a percent. And you saw when you typed in that amount, it zeroed out the percent screen. But if I wanted to do a percent, I could do that as well. And I'm going to put in an account number. And then we're going to go to the next line, and I'm going to go active. I'm going to put this in their checking account. And again, I could put another row in here. So say they wanted $50 more to go to this account, you could do that as well. Instead, I'm just going to choose the remaining net. So once this 10% goes into the savings account, I want the rest to go to this account. Okay. You could put a description in here, put notes in there. That's fine. I'm going to scroll back up to the top here, and we're going to look at some of these other columns. Everything in this last column is literally just tracking information for you. If you wanted to keep track of the I-9 completion date or their veteran information, you certainly can do that. But again, it's just tracking for you. When we look at this organizational labor piece in the middle, some folks have this, some folks don't. If you have divisions or departments or classes, things like that, those can be chosen here. You'll see this one, it has an asterisk that's required. So that's one that's required. Generally speaking, we do require, if you have departments, we want to make sure everyone's in a department. Doesn't mean that they can't work in a different department, but this will be their home department, so to speak. If you're keeping track of jobs, those will be listed as well. If we're doing workers' comp reporting, again, we want to choose a default workers' comp rate for us as well. So that's important. If you're using our manager self-service or supervisor self-service as well, so managers can come in here, you can select their manager from this list as well. And that will allow the manager to see this employee. Moving down to tax locations, we want to choose a work location. So payroll is based upon where you are working. And we want to make sure that we have the work location set up. This is our demo company, so we just have one work location. If you have offices or locations in other states, you will have more than one work location, okay? Because that will drive the taxes for this. So that's important. We don't have any clients that use school district taxes or anything like that. You just want to make sure that your work location is set up as your primary location. Moving down to federal and state tax. I want to pause on this for just a moment. We have many questions about the new W-4. So 2 years ago, IRS issued a new W-4 form. It's much more tricky, I would say, than the last one was. Everyone kind of got used to single zero, single one, married zero, married one, whatever. Now they've kind of just gone to a model where you really only have to fill out part one, which is your name, social security number, and whether you're single, married, or head of household. There are a lot of other options if you have multiple jobs, if you have children. Those do not need to be filled out. And most likely, you don't want to fill them out because it's going to have unintended tax consequences. Probably should refer to your accountant, your CPA, or tax preparer to figure out what the best way to do that is. But I will tell you 99% of people literally only have to fill out step one, okay, in that new W-form. We have if you go to papertrails.com/resources, there's a whole explanation video on the new W-4, how it works, how to fill it out, and so forth. So take a look at that. This is set up to use the new form or the old form, okay? Tax tables are still being published that way, but generally speaking, you should be filling out the new form. So this is head of household, married filed jointly or qualifying widower, and the single or married filed separately. Those are the three options on the W-form. I'm just going to put this person in as single, okay? If they are filling out that dependence amount or other income amount or other deductions amount, you could fill those in here. Again, I would encourage you to not do those. Just fill out the first part, fill it in, that's fine. People may still want to have an additional $10 or $20 or whatever set up. That would be okay. You fill that in right here. So same thing for the state tax. This is a little more traditional. This is still a single zero, single one. I'm going to come in here and just put single one. If there were additional exemptions in there or additional exemption amount, you could fill that in. Again, most people are just doing single and one or zero or two or whatever. And again, you could put an additional amount if you wanted $5 extra on there. So those are the taxes. These follow the W-4 forms very closely. That's the new the quick hire screen. So we've got everything filled out. Now what we want to do is just hit save. We've got our save complete. Everything's good. And we can move on to managing employees, right? I do have one question. How do we modify alternate pay rates and assign specific labor types to someone after they're already in the system? Michael, we're going to get to that as we go through some of these other screens. So hang tight for just a second. So as we come through, once we get our employees hired, they're already set up, we can come in here and go to employee maintenance. We'll go through some of these screens, but not all of them. Generally speaking, the one you're going to be using the most is the general screen. This is the basic information on that employee we just put in, right? Name, address, social security, hire date, so forth, things like that. I do want to show you some things on this screen. So we talk about being able to navigate between employees. You saw I clicked on the general tab and it went right to Matt, okay? When I did that, because that was the last employee that I worked on. So the system will remember you can move between any one of these screens and it's going to stay on Matt, okay? If you want to go to a different employee, there's a couple of different options. You can click on the little list icon here. This will bring you back to a list of all the employees, okay? Click on the one you want. We can also come in here and filter this list. So you can search. You'll notice all these grids have different filter icons. You can start searching by the last name. So you have a long list, you could do that. You can also filter if you click the status icon. I may want to see active or terminated employees. You can do that. Or I may want to just see a specific department. I want to see everyone in Department 10, for example. That will list you those. If you're searching, all these lists are searchable by these filters. You can either type or use the filters, okay? But I'm going to go back. I can also sort these, right? I'm going to go back to my buddy Matt that I just created. In here, you can also search. So if you wanted to go directly to somebody, I can search that as well. Click on that. Want to go to Homer. And I can also arrow through these as well. So if I click the right arrow, it's going to just go to the next one. If I hit the left arrow, it's going to go back to the last one on the list. So let's see if we can find my buddy here. Okay. So on the general screen, again, any of these items can be adjusted. If you have a social security number that needs to be updated, we just want to choose social security again, and you can use this updated SSN box to do that. If you are doing this as a result of an incorrect W-2, make sure you let us know because we're going to need to issue them a corrected W-2. So don't just change that without letting somebody know, please, okay? We talk a lot about hire dates, statuses, terminations, things like that. Rather than using the inactive and active options here to terminate someone, you really want to use the terminate button at the top, okay? So I'm going to come in here and say, yep, we terminated them, and we can use termination reason. We can create custom reasons, as you can see, but this one was for cause. If they're eligible for rehire, you could check that. If they had any benefits in here, those would show up as well, so you can see exactly what needs to be terminated. There's also a report that you can run, this termination report. This termination report is going to show you, and if they have any company assets, which we'll talk about in a little bit, if they have benefits, if they have paid time off in the system that needs to be paid out potentially, you can use this as well. So this report, again, it's blank because this is a new guy, but if you had company assets in here, you could put those in here. If they had any specific earnings or deductions or garnishments, accruals, things that you may need to do to finalize this employee, you can use this report to track that, okay? I'm going to cancel this. Actually, I'm going to save this really quick to terminate this guy, and then we're going to rehire him. So now when I come to my list, Matt Smith's not going to be in the list because we just terminated him. No longer there. To find him, I want to go search just for terminated employees. Come in and click on him. And now, if I accidentally did that, I can undo the termination. You, generally speaking, don't want to undo the termination. You probably want to rehire them, because when you rehire them, you're going to want to keep track of their new hire date. Again, benefits, everything is driven off of this. So we're going to put a rehire date of Monday. We fired them over the weekend. We're not going to use an onboarding template. We're just going to use regular hire here. We're going to say it was rehired as of Monday, full-time again, and we're just going to hit save. So now this employee is active again. And you'll see in just a second, when I get to the employment screen, you're going to see this history of that I just did that. So when I also did that, you can see the original hire date. So that original hire date's kept forever. So some people do use that for benefit tracking. Some people use the current hire date. It's all dependent on your policies and processes. Moving down to the employment screen, you're going to see an employment status history. You're going to see the history of when they were hired, fired, and came back in, right? So this will show you the history of that. If you're coming to the employment screen, you want to edit that current employment, or you can go back and look at our drop down from here. Say he goes from part-time to full or full-time to part-time, we could change that here. And you could set an effective date. So say I wanted to come in here and say, oh, yep, Matt's let us know on February 1st, he's going part-time. So all those benefits that he thought he was going to be eligible for, he's not anymore. So we'll put that in there, you future date that. If you're using jobs, which many people do, that would be in here. I'm going to go to the labor screen. This was one of those questions. How do we put someone into different things after they've been in the system? You can either use labor or organizations. Most of the time, it's the organization screen. So we're going to come in here. We're going to put them in Division 1, and he's moved to Department 15. Okay, that's on the organization screen. That's where you change that. If you have an employee who you want a specific distribution of their wages based on location or department, so say you have someone that's remote 50% of the time, you can come in here and you can say, I want all the regular earnings that they have to be split among the different departments, or excuse me, different locations. We do not have 2 locations set up here, so it's not going to let me do anything, but you could break that down. I'm going to show you what that looks like on the percent distribution screen a little closer. So we want all the employee default distribution. They're by default 100% Department 15. If you wanted to put them 25% in Department 5, you could do that, and it's automatically going to put 25% Department 5, 75% Department 15, for example. This is the default distribution. You can override it in payroll. So if you had someone that worked 30 hours in one department and 10 hours in another department, you could do that. This is generally speaking only used for salary employees. I wouldn't necessarily use this on an hourly employee because you want their specific hours broken out correctly. So I would just, caution you from doing this on an hourly employee. I think it's going to have some unintended consequences for you. If I'm going to go to miscellaneous fields, sometimes we'll set up miscellaneous fields for you. These we can set up if you had something you need to track. We could create a miscellaneous field for you. That would be in here. Moving on down, we're going to go to employee pay. This is also where a lot of folks are working. Most likely, you're going to work on the salary screen. This is going to tell you how much this employee is getting paid. Now, we know on the 1st of January, they were set up as this salary. We just set this up, $31.25. Well, Matt told us again, as of February 1st, he's going to go part-time. So this is going to be a future dated change. We can put a future dated change in or a current change. Okay. We could put a reason in here, right? So we could do, this was a reclassification. So we're going to do that. And now because he went part-time, he's getting a pay reduction. And I'm going to put a note in here that says, employee went part-time, just so I can keep track of that. And I hit save. Okay. Now I have my history here. So I can see on January 2nd, they were paid this much. And on February 1st, they changed and got paid this much. See a percent in increase or decrease. This is really nice for tracking the history. You don't know the number of times people ask us, when was the last time someone got a raise? So this will tell you when that happened. The system will let you edit an employee's hourly rate. I would really encourage you, rather than editing, to add new, again, because that will allow you to track every adjustment that is made. So add, do not edit, okay? If alternate pay rates are set up in the system, you can set up alternate pay rates in here. So again, this is under employee pay. Michael, you were asking about that. Alternate pay rates, this one, we just have rate 2, 3, and 4. We can tie alternate pay rates onto different labor, for example. So you'll see down here, if someone works in department 5, whatever, they may automatically get this rate. That's not set up in this demo company, but that is something that's possible. So you could say, hey, alternate rate here, he's got 25 bucks, you know, in this department he works, he gets $20, for example, rate 2. And in the time entry grid, you could choose that alternate rate as you're adding the time in there. When we look at tax information, this is the screen where we go in and we edit the W-4. So everything we just saw on the new hire screen is here as well. So these are all in here. You can adjust these anytime you want. Yep, they wanted to go single 2, and you just hit save. And that will be effective with the next payroll. So it's very similar to the new hire screen. Any earnings that are fixed earnings, for example, will show up here. So if you have someone that has a cell phone stipend, for example, that's probably the most common one. This is something that happens every single pay, okay? That's where these live. So if I had miscellaneous earnings of $25 per pay, we're just giving that to them. This will show up every single pay on their pay stub as $25 miscellaneous earnings. Not something that's used very often. I think it's mostly used for stipends, things like that, but that's an option as well. When we go to deductions, this is much more common, obviously. Pretty straightforward. We come in here, we kind of set up our medical. We could say, yep, okay, 25 bucks every week is going to my medical pre-tax. If you need deductions set up, please let us know. We'll get those set up for you. Obviously, they all have different tax implications. So it's really important to make sure that we're getting that done correctly. Again, we have all the different deduction types. Pretty easy to come in here. If someone's doing a retirement, for example, they can do a percent or a fixed amount, things like that. I will tell you the start and stop dates on these are based on the pay period, not the pay date. So you want to make sure that you're using the pay period and not the pay date, because otherwise you will have something paid that you probably didn't want. That happened to me just at the end of the year. I put something in there to stop on 12/31. Well, 12/31 was in the pay period for the first payroll of the year, and it went and took the deduction I didn't want it to. We had to fix it on the second payroll of the year. So make sure you're using a date that's outside that pay period, okay? Garnishments. You all have access to see garnishments. You do not have access to edit or add them. If you have garnishments, please send them to us. We will get them set up for you. Generally speaking, there is a mechanism that has to be set up to pay that and track that, and they're definitely pretty complicated. So please send those along to us, and we will get them set up. A memo calculation is something you're likely not going to have to deal with, but generally speaking, what that is you could put a match, an employer match on there. So if the employee was paying $25 per week and you wanted to show in their pay stub that you were contributing $25 a week, you could do that, okay? So this will show, a lot of folks like to use this so that they can say, hey, this is your total compensation for the year, right? I paid for your health insurance, your dental insurance. Yeah, you paid some, but I paid a lot more usually. And some people like to put that, it's just like it says, it's a memo, and literally it just sits on the pay stub so they can see that. You'll also see the matches show up in here as well. So those are automatically calculated. That's something you're going to need to do, but definitely something you can do if you want. Moving to the direct deposit screen, this screen again works the exact same way that it does in the quick hire. So again, add, new, edit, things like that. If you need to update the account number for whatever reason, generally we will let you know that because their direct deposit has been returned. So say this was, it wasn't just 65432, it was 54321, right? And so we would edit that and change that. If you need to add another one, we can hit add another one here. And again, we're going to go right through that same process. Active, the checking account sequence, it's going to ask me if I could replace number one. I could say, hey, I want to replace number one, make it, I really want this $10 to go in here first. And now it's automatically going to make my $10 first. Then second, we're going to take 10% of the check and the rest is going to go in this other account. So you can customize this any way you want. I'm going to show you payroll accumulations. This one doesn't have any data. Let's see if we can find someone that has some data. Hazel's always our good test dummy. So this is really informational only for you. If you really care, you want to know, these are accumulations that sit in the background that do calculations based on the current payroll, month to date, quarter to date, year to date numbers for different categories. Some of these are driven based, there's specific earnings for workers' comp. There's things that qualify and don't qualify. These just sit in the background really for, reference purposes. 99% of the time, you're never going to use these, but they're there. Those are the most common things that you're going to be working in on an employee basis, generally speaking. I'm going to touch on some of the benefits things. We don't have a lot of clients that use employee benefits in the system, so I'm not going to go into that, but I do want to show accruals, okay? Leave accruals are paid time off. That's all they are. So some people accrue time off, some people use it every payroll, get a bucket at the beginning of the year on the first payroll, or they accrue every year. So we want to get this set up for you. We will set up your accrual plan in the system, so it will be based on your policy. This particular company has 2 policies, so you can see exactly what accrual plan that they're into. So they're in a main paid leave accrual plan. They have a current balance of 3.13 hours. Some plans are based upon years of service, so you're going to want to put, you can see that how long they've been working, because a lot of times their earning rate is going to be defined by their years of service. So if someone is not getting the rate that you think they should, you want to look at the length of service to see why. Sometimes we will allow you to override the employee rate. So say this person, instead of getting 0.025 hours, gets 0.05 hours, and you want them to accrue 80 hours instead. You can override that on employees. We try to protect you from yourself. You should be consistent with your policies. So we encourage you not to do that, but you certainly can if you need to. Say for whatever reason, this person missed some time, or we didn't have them to use it on this vacation plan down here. Let's just say that Hazel took a day, but we didn't put it in the system and we wanted to deduct it from their balance, right? So we could come in here and go 464 hours, and we can hit save. When we do that, this balance doesn't update automatically. This will update on the next payroll, okay? So on the next payroll that you run, their balance will be in here. So you can put some notes in there if you want. This is leave accruals. The other thing I always look at is the accrual balance history screen. So this will tell you every payroll that was run. We just choose the accrual balances here. Every payroll that was run, you could see exactly what their starting balance was, what they accrued, what they took, what their ending balance was, and so forth. So this is really helpful in troubleshooting. This is the first screen I come to when someone says my balance is wrong. Why? Right? Why is my balance wrong? And I'll come here and I'll say, okay, they accrued this many hours. This was their balance, and here's why, right? If there was a rollover, for example, there will be a little information button here saying that there was change the balance due to a rollover. If someone manually updates it, like we saw us update it on this screen, when this processes, you'll see a little information that says Chris manually updated this balance. So you'll see that on this accrual balance history screen. And this is really helpful for troubleshooting. So take a look at that for sure. That's the most common benefit we use in the system. So I like to show that. Coming down to human resources. So this is also a section of payroll that a lot of people aren't really using, but it's really powerful as well. And I'm just going to breeze through these just so you kind of understand what's here. A lot of these require a little more customization, but these are all in the system for you. If we go to company assets, you can come list assets that you may be issuing to an employee. So you saw that termination report. When someone leaves, you can get this, basically get that termination report. It'll tell you, hey, you need to get their keys, you need to get their laptop, you need to get their cell phone, right? So you can keep track of assets, serial numbers, things like that. You can keep track of employee contacts. So if you have benefit contacts, for example, that you need to keep track of, or emergency contacts, those are on here as well. Employee documents, you can store any number of employee documents. So if you wanted to keep track of their I-9, their W-4, their deferral, their salary deferrals, anything you want to keep track of, performance issues, you can keep track of this in employee documents. Likewise, in employee notes, I encourage people to use the notes feature. This is an easy place for them to track. You can say, hey, Hazel was late today. We want to start documenting this for HR purposes, so we can do that in here. Under prior employment, you can keep track of that if you wanted to. You can keep track of that information. We've got performance. So you can keep track of awards, which are positive things. So if they get the Employee of the Year award, you can do that. You can also keep track of occurrences. So under our occurrences, this is more negative type things. So this could be something you're tracking for performance issues. Same thing with corrective actions. And there's some very basic review information in here as well. Under regulatory, there's some OSHA and federal workplace reporting, WOTC reporting that's in there. Again, very limited number of clients are using this. And then training development, you can also keep track of certifications. So say you want to keep track of, CPR, that's always the one I use. An effective date and an expiration date will be in here. And I'll show you something really quick, a dashboard really quickly that you can see these. Likewise for education and skills training, you can keep track of all of these so that you've got a full employee record. So that's employee management. I want to show you employee admin tools. Under employee analytics, there's a few dashboards that might be helpful to you. We look at anniversaries. You could see all of the work anniversaries. This one's going to show in the next 7 days. If I want to see all of the January anniversaries, for example, I could see those. You could see length of service. So if you're doing awards or you want to do acknowledgements, you can do that. This is really easy to do. Likewise with birthdays, you can come in here and do birthdays. I want to see all of my January birthdays, right? Here's all my January birthdays. Remember we talked about those certifications? I want to see, this will list all my certifications in the system. I can search or filter by a specific certification type. I can also sort and search by the expiration date. All of these grids, you're going to notice there's this little Excel button in the top right corner. I can export any one of these grids. So if I have a dashboard and I want to export that and manipulate in Excel, you can do that, okay? Skip down to documents on file. So if you wanted to keep track of everybody's I-9, for example, I can see everybody's I-9 and I can see who has one and who doesn't have one. So I can filter this by type and I want to see everybody that's active with no form on there. So if I come in here and check that all these people do not have an I-9 on file, at least uploaded to the system, okay? So it's really easy to come in here and say, oh, I need to do an I-9 audit and here's who I'm missing. If I uncheck this employee box, it's going to show me who has one. So these 4 employees do have I-9s on file, which is great. So this is a really handy feature if you're using that document screen. We look at emergency contacts. So if you are using the contact feature, emergency contacts will show up here, okay? The employee salary hourly list. This is a question that we get a lot as well. How much do my employees make? This will show you their employee's name, their per pay salary, or their hourly rate, so forth, their hourly or salary. Okay, so this is really nice. And you can choose an as of date in here. We use this a lot, specifically at the beginning of the year when we're trying to make sure that everybody is being paid above minimum wage. We'll come look at this, sort our list. Did anyone get paid less than $13.80 this year or less than the tipped wage this year? We want to come in and update these. So this is a really handy screen for that as well. Hires and terminations. So you can come in here and see who's been hired within a certain period. You choose your dates here. You can see who's terminated within a certain period. So you can see those as well at a glance. Really handy. And lastly, you can see training in here. So if there's trainings in here, very similar to the certifications, you can see those as well. We have a few employee utilities in here. You can see those. We also have under employee management, I want to show you the self-service management. So we had a lot of questions about my employees are locked out of their account, they're not enabled, so forth. This self-service management dashboard is going to be a lifesaver, okay? So you can come in here and you can see exactly who's set up and who isn't set up. At a glance, Isaac isn't set up, probably because he doesn't have a self-service email, okay? See who's enabled, who isn't enabled, and so forth. If you want to go to the enable access screen, you can select all the employees that have not been enabled, click the box and hit process. That will fire off an email. Someone's inactive, meaning they have been enabled, but they have not activated their account, you can come in here and set those up as well, okay? If there's an account that's locked, you could do those as well, and you can also come resend these emails. So this self-service management screen really is helpful if someone has forgotten their password, or not if they forgot their password, excuse me, if they have, if they've not set themselves up yet. This is really what that's for. If someone forgets their password, they do want to use the forgot password link. If you go to papertrails.com/help, there are a ton of resources there for you to watch videos, step-by-step instructions on how to do that. So that's the down and dirty stuff for employee management. So that's all the employee management screens, where things are going, how to manage things, manipulate things, really high level overview, but certainly I would encourage you to go in there and take a look at them. I want to let you know we do have resources out there for you. So obviously make sure your employees are using My HR Stuff. This is our mobile online employee self-service. Employees can view their W-2s, which just got published for last year. They can view their pay stubs. They can review and update their direct deposits themselves, update their contact information. If they're using timekeeping, they can punch in and punch out. If you're using benefits, they can enroll in benefits. And if you're using our expense reimbursement tool, they can go in and submit all their expenses right in there as well. So it's a really powerful employee management tool that they can do on their own to manage their own destiny. All that stuff's tracked as well. So if an employee makes a change to their direct deposit or their taxes, and then they come back at the end of the year and say, oh, you screwed up, we can see, hey, no, well, you guys put that in yourself. So definitely something to help for as well. I did mention it before, papertrails.com/help is all of our online self-service tools. If you go to papertrails.com/resources, there's also a ton of employer resources there as well. Did want to let you know the employee marketplace has launched as part of My HR Stuff. So this is a free benefit to employees. They can get discounts at certain brands, just a nice added value there. And this year as well, TurboTax is now integrated. So if an employee enters their employer ID, tax ID, and their social security number into TurboTax, it'll ask them if they automatically want to import all of their wage data from their W-2 automatically. This really eliminates the potential typos when people are doing that. We get a few calls every year that says, oh, my employer screwed up my social security. TurboTax told me my employer screwed up my taxes. And generally speaking, that's because they miskeyed it. So this will really help save some headache on that. It's totally secure as well. So as a reminder, we do these webinars every month, third Tuesday of the month at 2 o'clock. Next month is compliance challenges for employers. We're going to talk about all the different federal and state mandates that you have to comply with. So this is a riveting topic, but lots of good information next month, February 21st at 2 p.m. And then we're going to do a regroup on the main retirement savings program, March 21st. This is mandatory for all employers with 5 or more employees coming up. It's going to start later this year. It was supposed to be started April 1st of this year. I spoke with the director of the state program just this morning, and she said that the state will not be ready for the April 1st deadline, and the legislature has some information on its plate to push that deadline back to later in this year. We don't have total date on that yet, but hopefully by March. And Beth Bordowitz, who is the executive director of the state program, will be joining us on that webinar, which is great. So that will be a nice inside track as well. And again, don't forget papertrails.com/resources. You can get these webinars and more going there. I would love to take any questions for anybody that has questions. Certainly, I know we covered a lot in a short period of time. Feel free to throw the questions in the chat or in the Q&A. You can also always reach out to your payroll processor. They're a great resource for you as well. So, but I'm happy to take a few questions if there are some. Michelle has a specific question for certified payrolls and fringe benefits. I'm going to reach out to you offline, Michelle, because that is a sticky wicket for sure. Certified payrolls are tons of fun. All right. Not seeing any more specific questions here. Oh, I got one more here. How do employees download the app? So it's not actually an app. So if they just go to myhrstuff.com, it's a mobile-friendly website. Then they can bookmark that. If you go to, and they can bookmark it right on their home screen, so it looks just like an app. If you go to papertrails.com/help, you're going to see it. One of those topics is a quick 30-second video that says, how do I add this to my phone? And that will show you right in that video on how to do that. But if they just go to myhrstuff.com from their phone, it's totally mobile friendly. There's no apps to update things like that. It's just a mobile friendly website, and they can add it as an app icon on their home screen if they like. So this is a good question. Certainly, we have a lot of these kind of employees. So this is a question. We have an employee who works off and on his college schedule. how do we get it? How do we handle it for the months that they're gone, right? So this is really common in our seasonal businesses as well. So the best case scenario would be to terminate them and rehire them every time. I know that's a little bit of work. You can leave them on if you want, but generally speaking, if you're really trying to be very diligent about tracking your benefits in particular, because we know that benefits are often driven by days of service, time off, things like that, I would really encourage you to terminate them and rehire them every time they're coming back. If they're, generally speaking, that's only a couple of times a year. If someone's working one week and not another, and then the week after, I would just leave them on. They're still an employee. But if someone's going off for 2 or 3 months, terminate them and then rehire them when they come back, because that's going to keep that history in that employment status history screen, so you can see exactly when they worked. And again, particularly, we have all these mandates now for benefits, accruals, retirements coming down the road. We really want to make sure that we're truly compliant with those dates. So hire and rehire and terminate each time. Seasonal, temporary workers, whatever that is. Okay, great. Well, I went a little over time. I try to keep these to a half an hour, but if you do have other questions, please feel free to reach out to us, reach out to Payroll Processor. We will be happy to assist you, get things answered for you. And otherwise, we will see you next month for the compliance webinar. Have a great afternoon.